Noor is a young guy living in the fantasy world, known for being strong for his age and well-liked by everyone in town. He works a physically demanding job, and even his boss is impressed with his work, never saying a bad word about him because he's the best worker they've ever had. One day, after getting his daily wage, he was heading home when he suddenly heard a woman screaming for help from a nearby cave. Without a second thought, he ran toward the sound, ignoring his boss's warning that it could be dangerous. He rushed into the cave and found a girl trapped in magical barbed wire, while a group of adventurers was fighting a giant demon bull. Since he was a kid, Noor had always taken care of his sick mother and the household because his father never came back with the milk. He accepted the responsibility and began managing the house. His mother was bedridden most of the time, so Noor would make her hot soup, covered in soot, and tell her he was going to hunt rabbits so she could have some protein for dinner. His mother would apologize for not being able to give him anything in life, but Noor, always brave, would reassure her that he didn't need anything. That night, Noor made a delicious rabbit soup for his mother, but when he returned to feed her, she had already passed away. Now, poor Noor had no one left to call family. He buried his mother outside their home and decided not to be weak or cry. From that moment, he lived alone, taking care of the garden, hunting, raising livestock, and studying in his room after cleaning it thoroughly. He trained his body by catching wild fish, carrying heavy loads up mountains, and eating a lot of protein every day. One lonely night, he climbed up on a chair and grabbed an old dusty storybook, starting to read. The stories reminded him of when his family was still together, and his father would tell him tales about mighty adventurers fighting giant dragons, learning magic from wizards, lifting curses from haunted forests, and battling fairy armies. Those stories always captivated him because his father would say that an adventurer's job was to protect the weak and make sure they never got hurt. That inspired Noor to do something with his life, so the next day, after taking care of the animals, he packed up and headed to the city to try becoming an adventurer. He spent nights in the forest with a campfire and, by the next morning, arrived at the kingdom's beautiful city. Entering through the massive main gate, he was amazed by the number of people walking around the marketplace, selling their goods, and others buying swords and fruit in the same place. As he wandered, he saw a man with a sword and decided to follow him, leading him to the Adventurers Guild. He walked inside to find a large hairy man at the reception instead of a thickly bearded girl. Disappointed, he told the man he wanted to become an adventurer, but the guy brushed him off, saying this wasn't a place for kids and that he should think about his parents. Noor replied that his parents had passed away, which caught the overweight man's attention, and he told Noor to head to the training school first. Noor was confused, but the man explained that to join the guild, he needed to choose a school, go through basic training, pick a class, and learn skills. Only after graduating could he become an adventurer. Excited by the information, Noor eagerly headed to the school, aiming to become the strongest swordsman. He enrolled and started swordsmanship training, but even after weeks of practice, while other students were awakening their magical potential, Noor had no magical abilities. He kept at it and months passed, after which the instructor told him he had no talent and was wasting his time there, suggesting he try another school because he clearly wasn't cut out to be a swordsman. Noor didn't give up and found another school, deciding to train as a warrior. He started training under a big red-haired man, but even after intense training for several months, the red-haired guy told him he wasn't talented for that either since all he had learned was how to block attacks. Noor then tried several other schools. First as a hunter, but he was expelled. Then he tried being a thief, but was rejected for lack of talent. Finally, he tried being a mage, but that failed too. Desperately, he even tried becoming a healer, but that didn't work out either, leaving him dejected. The overweight man was shocked to hear that, after spending months in every school, Noor hadn't learned a single skill and told him that, unfortunately, he couldn't do anything to become an adventurer. Feeling down, Noor left the city and returned to his cabin in the forest. But he refused to give up and set up his own training area with a sword, determined to perfect the one move he had learned: blocking and deflecting incoming attacks. He spent his days refining that technique day and night. Eventually, after a year of hard training, he could block 10 attacks at once. He kept going, and after 3 years he could block 100 swords simultaneously, but he still hadn't learned any new skills. He kept at it relentlessly until his sword broke. 14 years passed, and during that time, he realized he had trained every single day and could now block 1,000 swords without fail. Even though he had worked this hard, he didn't gain any new skills but decided to return to the Adventurers Guild one more time. This time, he met a young girl who checked his skill list and suggested he visit the training school. Noor told her he had already done all that, and she was shocked, telling him he didn't have enough skills to become an adventurer. Once again, Noor felt defeated. The overweight man came out, barely recognizing Noor, and they sat down to chat over drinks. Noor told him about his years of training. The overweight man explained that adventurers are ranked from E to S, but even to be an E- you needed at least one skill which Noor didn't have. Noor felt sad, but the overweight man mentioned there was a lesser-known rank below E called F. There were some restrictions for F-ranked adventurers, as they couldn't take killing missions or work in the forests outside the city. They were limited to manual jobs in the city, but nobody really wanted to do that. Without hesitation, Noor accepted and finally got his adventurer's license. He started doing odd jobs around the city, like lifting heavy things, finding lost cats, and continuing his nightly training. He also took on jobs helping the elderly by cooking for them. While doing all this, he kept training and seemed content working as an adventurer who could actually help people. Now, back to the present, the giant bull charged toward the adventurers, knocking their leader against the wall with its axe. Noor rushed to check, but the leader was already dead. Looking back, he saw the others being skewered by the bull as it killed everyone in the area effortlessly before setting its sights on the white-haired girl. Noor's body moved instinctively. He threw a rock at the bull to distract it and then sprinted away. The beast chased him with shocking speed, and Noor realized he couldn't outrun it, so he turned and blocked the bull's attack. To his surprise, his block was so powerful that the bull was thrown against the wall. The monster got back up and lunged through the dust to strike Noor again, but once more, Noor deflected the attack. He realized that if he missed even one block, he would die. He searched for an opening but knew he didn't have any offensive skills to launch a counterattack. His sword started cracking, and the beast turned toward the girl, charging at her. Noor immediately used his featherstep ability, boosting his speed to appear in front of the bull and block its attack again, at the cost of his own sword. He remembered his father's words about an adventurer protecting the weak, even at the cost of their own life, so he stood firm with his broken sword. This time, when the monster attacked, Noor deflected it with all his strength, causing the bull's axe to bounce back and cleanly decapitate the beast before getting stuck in the stone. The girl was shocked as blood splattered across the area, but the magical barbed wire disappeared from her body. Noor collapsed to the ground, staring at his broken sword, realizing how close he had come to death. The girl quickly thanked him for saving her life and asked for his name, but Noor replied that his name wasn't worth remembering and walked away. He strolled through the streets, thinking about how he almost got killed by a giant bull and realizing he needed to train even harder if he truly wanted to become an adventurer who could protect people. After Noor left, the dungeon quickly filled with guards, and it turned out the girl with white hair was Lin, from a noble family. Her personal guards arrived and started examining the dead minotaur, while covering the fallen guards with white sheets. Her guard apologized for not being there to protect her, but Lin reassured them it wasn't their fault. Soon after, a man named Dar showed up, asking if she was okay and for more details about what happened. News of the attack reached her brother, Ray, who was shocked to hear that his sister had been attacked by such a monster. Ray immediately asked Dar how the Minotaur ended up on the surface when it should have been deep in the dungeon. Dar explained that it was likely an assassination attempt. They found out that the ring Lin recently bought from a merchant contained a 90% pure mana stone, which was extremely rare and attracted the Minotaur. Ray was confused about why the Minotaur would target the mana stone, but Dar suspected that the stone was cursed by a neighboring kingdom, Derry, known for practicing dark magic. Ray agreed, given the recent border skirmishes, and now this open attack on Lin made it clear that war was imminent. Ray then asked Dar about the man who saved Lin's life, but Dar admitted they didn't know much, only that he killed the Minotaur in minutes before disappearing without leaving his name. The next morning, Noor casually went to the Adventurers Guild like nothing had happened. The big man at the guild immediately approached him, asking if he was all right. Noor looked confused, so the man explained there had been a deadly monster near his worksite last night, and he was worried. Noor didn't realize the big man was talking about the minotaur he killed, since he thought it was just a low-level bull monster because he'd defeated it so easily. The big man told Noor he was lucky to have left early because even former Rank A adventurers like himself couldn't handle such a beast. Noor wiped some dust off his face, wondering what kind of monster could be so terrifying, then thanked his luck for only encountering a giant cow. Noor asked what happened to the monster, and the big man said a mysterious guy had killed it in a single blow. Noor was shocked, thinking how strong that person must be to take down such a beast, not realizing the big man was talking about him. The big man handed Noor his daily wage but also told him he should find a more stable job, or he'd never make much money. Before Noor could respond, a hooded figure appeared behind him, calling his name. Noor turned around and saw the white-haired girl he saved the night before. He asked how she found him. Lynn apologized for following him, explaining she used a long-range detection skill to locate him. Noor joked if she learned that from the thief school, but Lynn explained she was from the mage branch, though all branches had similar skills. Noticing they were drawing attention, Lynn asked Noor if they could speak somewhere more private. Before Noor could reply, the big man pulled him aside, asking what trouble he'd gotten into. Noor denied doing anything wrong, while Lynn set up a soundproof barrier, insisting Noor follow her. They walked out of the building to a quieter area, and Lynn expressed her gratitude, not just for saving her life but for saving many people's lives. Noor still didn't realize his strength, so he downplayed it, saying Lynn was probably more capable and that he had just messed up her plans by getting involved. Lynn insisted that wasn't true. If Noor hadn't shown up, she would have died. Lynn then mentioned wanting to give him a reward, but Noor immediately said her thanks were more than enough. Lynn, however, wasn't giving up that easily. She mentioned her noble status, and that even her father wanted to thank him personally. Noor refused again, surprising Lynn since she couldn't understand why someone would turn down a reward from a noble. Lynn asked if something was bothering Noor, even offering her father's vast lands as a gift if he wished. Noor still declined, saying he didn't need anything from her, which made Lynn tear up, feeling obligated to repay him. She vowed not to leave until Noor accepted her thanks, reminding him of a time long ago. It took Noor back to when he had acted similarly with one of his instructors at the healer school, refusing to take no for an answer. In the end, the instructor gave in, agreeing to meet his father but still refusing any extravagant gifts. This memory softened Lynn's mood, and she used magic to cloak both of them as they wandered the city on their way to her home. When they arrived, Noor was awestruck, having never seen such a grand and luxurious place. They walked past the guards, and Noor started to suspect Lynn really was a noble from how rich everything looked. On the way, they encountered her personal bodyguard, Ines, who eyed Noor suspiciously, asking who he was. Lynn introduced Noor as the man who saved her life, and Ines immediately softened, saying she'd take them to the Lord. They followed Ines through a gallery until they saw a man in yellow armor waiting by the window. The man spun his spear and pointed it at Noor, demanding to know who he was. Ines ordered him to stand down, reminding him that Noor was Lynn's guest, but the man, who resembled a real-life Pikachu, mocked Noor for looking poor. Ines introduced him as Gil and told him to escort them to the room, since she still didn't fully trust Noor. They waited outside the hall while Lynn's father, Clay, spoke with her brother about the looming war. They remembered their last meeting with the King of Derry, who had insulted them and threatened war if they didn't give access to all the dungeons in their kingdom. Soon after, the doors opened, and they entered the hall. Ines and Gil knelt before their lord, but Noor, unsure of who the man in the high chair was, casually strolled up alongside Lynn. Lynn introduced Noor to her father, explaining how he had saved her life. The lord immediately stood up and approached Noor, thanking him for saving his daughter. Noor, feeling out of place, admitted he wasn't a noble and didn't know how to address one, but the lord waved it off, laughing as he shook Noor's hand and asked what reward he wanted. Noor declined, saying he didn't want any land or gold. The lord seemed puzzled but offered Noor half of the treasure from the kingdom's oldest dungeon, which was worth more than a small country. Ray advised against it, but Noor still refused, saying he didn't want any rewards. The lord was confused by Noor's refusal of such a grand offer. Eventually, the lord walked back to his chair, pulling out a massive black sword from behind it, his old weapon from his adventuring days. Ray looked a bit worried, but his father reassured him that it was fine, as the sword was meant for battle, not decoration. He handed the sword to Noor, who quickly realized it was far heavier than anything he'd ever used. Thinking it was just an old sword, Noor accepted it as a gift, wanting to wrap things up so he could get back to work. The lord asked Noor to try swinging it, and to everyone's shock, Noor swung the massive two-handed sword with one hand, creating a gust of wind around them. Noor casually commented that it was a bit heavy but that he'd get used to it, making Clay laugh in disbelief at Noor's strength. Clay then asked Noor if he'd teach Lin a few techniques since things were getting dangerous, but Noor refused, saying he had nothing to teach her, and made his way to leave. As they walked back through the gallery, Noor glanced at the sword again, thinking it was about the size of a drainpipe and wondering if it could be used to clear out gutters more efficiently. But before he could leave, Gil stepped in front of him, pressing his spear to Noor's face, challenging him to prove he was worthy of wielding such a weapon. Noor wondered if he could leave the house and get back to work. Gil led him through the corridors, and Noor had no idea where he was being taken. He just wanted to return to his job. Surprisingly, Gil took him to a training arena for a mock duel. Noor was shocked because he hadn't had a serious sparring match with anyone since his academy days. Gil grabbed a training staff and bragged about being quite famous in the capital, then asked Noor to pick his weapon. Thinking this could be a good learning opportunity, Noor chose a simple wooden sword. He figured he wouldn't stand a chance against someone like Gil but was determined to give it his best shot. Gil attacked first, thrusting his staff toward Noor, but Noor easily dodged. He could see that Gil's movements were efficient, showing years of training, but strangely, everything felt slow to Noor. He assumed Gil was holding back to avoid hurting him, thinking Noor was just a beginner. Noor called for a break, telling Gil there was no need to hold back that much. So, Gil got serious and attacked with more intensity, but it still wasn't fast enough to overwhelm Noor. Noor kept finding openings in Gil's defense whenever his attacks missed. Frustrated that none of his hits were landing, Gil decided to use a technique called Lex, where he changed the direction of his strike at the last moment. Noor dodged it, and Gil used that to launch another attack as Noor landed, but Noor dodged again and even asked Gil to increase the speed, feeling comfortable with the current pace. Gil, having given it his all, was shaken when he heard Noor casually ask for more speed. It bruised his ego, and Noor started realizing he might actually be stronger than Gil. But suddenly, Gil unleashed his special attack, faster than the speed of sound. Noor dodged at the last second and told Gil he didn't want to fight anymore. Afterward, Noor left the palace, but rumors about his abilities started spreading among the other knights. They couldn't believe Noor had dodged the captain's special attack. Some thought Noor only survived because Gil had used a practice weapon. Otherwise, Gil could have easily defeated him. Feeling defeated, Gil thought back to his past. He had always been talented with the spear, traveling the kingdom in search of strong opponents, but no one ever gave him a real challenge. He eventually joined the knights in the capital to fight monsters, as they were stronger than humans, but even monsters were no match for him. The boredom stayed. One day, while he was lazing around, the master of the sword school came to see him. Gil complained about how boring it was to be so strong, wishing someone as powerful as him would show up to make things exciting again. The master told him that one day, a student would surpass him, and Gil hoped to meet that person before he died to break the monotony. Now, Gil thought of Noor, the man who had killed a minotaur with one strike. From the start, Gil knew Noor was intriguing, but he hadn't sensed any overwhelming power from him. But during their sparring match, Gil realized Noor was far stronger than he appeared. When Noor asked him to increase the speed, Gil used his fastest attack, confident no human could survive it. When Noor dodged, Gil felt defeated, and even more so when Noor ended the match right there. Gil believed Noor had done it to save him from embarrassment in front of his men. Before leaving, Noor said he looked forward to their next meeting, which Gil took as a way of telling him to get stronger. For the first time, Gil felt like he'd found someone who could make his life exciting again. On the other hand, Noor had no idea how highly Gil thought of him. He had used body enhancement skills and a feather step technique to dodge the special attack at the last second, and if he had been even a little slower, he would have died. Noor assumed Gil had adjusted his speed just enough to give Noor a fighting chance and felt grateful because it showed how much more training he needed. The next day, Noor started cleaning out the gutters using the valuable sword he had received from the king, and he was amazed at how well it worked. Later, he sat in the forest because his construction job had been postponed due to the Minotaur incident. He wondered how to spend his time until work resumed and wanted to find a good use for the large sword. He thought it might make a grate or pizza cutter or even a barbecue spatula, but he lacked the resources to start those ventures. He tried using his fire magic and figured it was too weak to start a barbecue. Suddenly, he heard footsteps behind him and turned to find Lin approaching. Noor asked how he could help, and Lin requested to become his student so she could serve and learn from him. She was eager to assist Noor in any way he needed, but Noor turned her down, saying he couldn't teach her anything and that he was fine on his own. Lin even offered money for her training, but Noor made it clear he didn't want anything. Lin insisted that she could still be useful, and Noor struggled to get his point across. To prove herself worthy of being his student, Lin decided to show off her magic. She created an ice spear, fired it at herself, then burned it with a powerful fire spell. Next, she cut down a large tree with a small dagger using another skill and followed it up by using sword magic to explode a tree behind Noor. She was confident Noor would take her as a student after seeing all that, but he still refused. Noor realized Lin had overestimated him and thought about how to convince her that he wasn't on her level. He decided to show off one of his own skills and created a small fireball to demonstrate that he wasn't as impressive as she thought. Lin was shocked by the display. Lin remembered an old story about a boy with no talent that all the teachers used to talk about. She had always assumed it was just a cautionary tale since she couldn't believe a 12-year-old could survive full-time training at all 6 schools, while even veteran soldiers struggled. One day, the strongest mage running the magic school had shown off his small fire skill before enlarging it to demonstrate mastery. He said it had taken decades of practice to grow that tiny flame. So when Noor showed Lin his small fireball, she was stunned. It was far bigger than anything she had seen before. Noor told her that was the best he could manage, and his skills in other branches were about the same. Lin knew that the size of that fireball meant Noor had extraordinary ability, and she concluded that he must be a master in all other branches as well. Now, she felt embarrassed for being proud of the high-level skills she had just learned. Even though Noor was so much stronger than her, he had never boasted about his power and even took on the most mundane tasks to help others. Lin realized that Noor's mind and character were as strong as his body, and nothing could sway him. As a princess who would one day lead the kingdom alongside her brother, she knew she needed to be strong. She wanted to learn how to be strong from Noor, and so once again she approached him. Right after Noor left the restaurant after dinner, Lin said she finally understood how immature and pointless she had been, and now she wanted to learn even more from Noor. Lin believed that Noor's strength would become the foundation of peace and prosperity for their kingdom, so she accepted him as her teacher. But Noor, overwhelmed by all of this, just wanted to go home. Ray, Lin's older brother, was sitting in his office wondering how their father could possibly give away the legendary black sword to a total stranger. He remembered how their father had explored dungeons in his younger days alongside masters from the 6 schools of craft. After a long journey, they discovered the black blade, instantly recognized as the most valuable artifact. The sword was made of an unknown metal, stronger than anything they'd ever encountered. It was nearly indestructible, immune to both physical attacks and magic. But what puzzled everyone was why such a powerful sword was in such poor condition. Ray knew that the black blade was far more valuable than any treasure they owned, and his father wouldn't just give it to anyone unless he saw something special in them. He figured his father sensed the growing danger threatening their kingdom and gave the sword to Noor, believing he might be the kingdom's savior. Ray also felt that Noor wasn't just an ordinary guy, and when the time came, Noor would be their ace in the hole. Meanwhile, Noor was chilling, enjoying street food in the city with Lin, who had now made herself his student. Noor wanted to tell her he wasn't worthy of being her master. He figured if they went to the guild, Lin would see how useless he really was and finally leave him alone. When they arrived, Fatty, the guild master, immediately asked why Noor was hanging out with a princess. Noor responded that it was complicated, so Fatty decided to give them some privacy, even though Noor was hoping for some advice. Fatty then asked what they needed, and Noor said they wanted to take on a mission for two. Since Lin was a B-rank adventurer, Fatty suggested they go hunt goblins outside the city. Noor was shocked because he had only heard stories about how real adventurers fight goblins like it's practice. He never thought the day would come when he'd experience it firsthand, but he also realized he was relying on Lin's rank, even though he wanted her to ditch him. Noor noticed Lin staring at him, making him feel guilty, thinking she had seen how greedy and shameless he was. Lin asked if something was wrong, and Noor replied by asking if she was okay with the setup since he was riding on her rank. Lin said she didn't mind at all and told Noor he was free to use anything she had. Noor felt a bit uneasy but shrugged it off, knowing this was his chance to live out his dream. They left the guild determined, but then Fatty called Noor back because he had no idea where the goblins were. Fatty finished up some paperwork and then warned Noor not to expect too much. Even though goblins were low-level monsters, they could still be dangerous. He showed them the location on a map and mentioned that the goblin numbers had been decreasing lately. Fatty told Noor to collect the right ears of the goblins they killed for the reward and sent them on their way. Noor and Lin headed into the forest, and Noor was surprised since he'd never seen this part of the woods before. He told Lin about how the trees were different in the south where he was from, and Lin gave him a short lecture on ecosystems. Noor then asked about goblins, and Lin explained they were small monsters that ate fruit and small creatures, but their numbers grew quickly. If there were too many, the forest wouldn't provide enough food, and they'd start attacking human settlements. That's why adventurer guilds often sent people to keep their population in check, but didn't allow them to be wiped out since goblins played a role in the ecosystem. Noor was impressed by Lin's knowledge and thought he wasn't even close to being worthy of being her master. They kept walking deeper into the dense forest, but even with her detection abilities, Lin couldn't find any goblin tracks. Then, she sensed something far off and led Noor to check it out. As they ventured deeper, it got darker, and the fog thickened. When they reached the area where Lin sensed the monster, they found nothing. Lin said the monster's presence suddenly vanished, but Noor felt something weird in the rustling leaves around them. He looked ahead and saw a half-eaten goblin corpse hanging in the air before it suddenly dropped to the ground. Lin immediately cast a spell to reveal what was behind this, and a giant green monster with a red mana crystal on its forehead appeared. Noor was shocked and asked what this big green creature was. Lin tried to explain it was a goblin emperor, but she stuttered, and Noor only heard goblin. He panicked, thinking if this was the normal size of goblins and real adventurers fought things this big for practice, they must be incredible. The goblin emperor uprooted a tree with its bare hands, letting out a roar that sent chills through Lin. She knew even a goblin king was considered a disaster-class monster, and the emperor was far stronger than that. She also knew this goblin emperor wasn't a natural monster but an artificial one created through forbidden experiments. Lin was terrified, and Noor, thinking she might not have faced monsters before, told her not to worry because their opponent was just a goblin. His words gave Lin courage, and she thought maybe Noor had anticipated a monster of this level, which explained why he was so eager to come. Lin readied herself beside Noor, confident they could defeat the Goblin Emperor together. The Goblin Emperor attacked with the tree trunk in its hand. Noor managed to block the first and second hits as well. The Goblin Emperor kept trying to overpower Noor with its brute strength, but Noor held his ground. This threw the goblin off balance, and Lin tried attacking with wind and ice magic, but the goblin was too agile and dodged all her spells. The Goblin Emperor threw the tree at Lin, but Noor deflected it in time. He asked Lin if she was okay, and she told him to focus on the goblin, which was now throwing more trees at him. Noor kept blocking the trees, but he was getting tired. Lin noticed the small wounds on the Goblin Emperor healing almost instantly and realized the red mana stone was causing it. Suddenly, the Goblin Emperor hurled 3 trees at Noor simultaneously, and Noor panicked, knowing he couldn't block them all at once. Fortunately, Lin blasted the trees with a strong wind spell. The attack wounded the goblin, but it healed quickly again. Now, Lin was certain they needed to remove the mana stone to defeat it, but Noor doubted they could do it. Then Noor had an idea and told Lin to shoot him from behind with the same wind spell. Lin warned him that the spell was powerful enough to blow through castle walls, but Noor planned to take the hit with the black blade and use it to launch himself toward the Goblin Emperor faster than the goblin could react. Lin agreed and blasted Noor with the wind spell. He shot forward, and even though he used body enhancement skills, his bones still cracked from the impact. He dodged a tree thrown by the Goblin Emperor and quickly healed himself before jumping high to deliver the final blow. The Goblin Emperor tried to block with the tree, but Noor's powerful strike cut through it and hit the mana stone in its head. The mana stone dislodged, and the Goblin Emperor let out a scream of agony as Noor tumbled to the ground. He got up and saw the goblin in pain as Lin came over holding the mana stone. Noor asked Lin if she could finish the goblin off by herself now, and Lin agreed. Feeling pity for the monster, she promised to end its suffering quickly, but ironically, she ended up burning it to ashes. Noor felt bad for the goblin and figured he'd had enough goblin hunting for a while. He also thought he was still too weak to take on even low-level monsters and needed to train harder before returning to the forest. Meanwhile, a secret agent working for Ray delivered the mana stone to him and reported the Goblin Emperor incident. As soon as Ray saw the purity and size of the mana stone, he knew the Magic Empire was involved. He also knew Lin and Noor had taken down an extremely powerful monster with only a few scratches. But what puzzled him most was how such a massive monster could enter their kingdom unnoticed. Ray immediately ordered his agent to monitor any suspicious activity in nearby cities and then disbanded them. At the same time, Noor and Lin returned to the guild to report to Fatty, who asked how their first monster hunt went. Still thinking it was just a normal goblin, Noor told Fatty it was harder than he thought, and they only won thanks to Lin. Lin admired Noor's humility even more, and Fatty assumed Noor had just watched from the sidelines while the princess did all the fighting. Fatty was suspicious about the red mana stone on its forehead and asked if it was really a goblin. Noor looked to Lin for confirmation, and she replied that if her master called it a goblin, then it was just a goblin, nothing more. Satisfied with the answer, Fatty asked for their proof of kills. That's when Noor and Lin suddenly realized they had forgotten to collect the goblin ears before burning them. Right after that, Ray got reports about strange things happening in nearby towns and villages. In some places, people were hearing weird noises at night, and animals were getting spooked when returning from the forest. In other places, more and more pets were going missing because the surrounding forests had suddenly gone eerily quiet. Ray suspected it was a sign of some unnatural monster entering their kingdom. He immediately ordered his men to send search teams to each location and cast detection spells on everyone involved. He also asked them to summon the 6 masters from each school, just in case they needed extra help. After his men left, Ray vented his frustration by tossing papers into the air, wondering if the Magic Empire was really targeting their underground vault to this extent. Meanwhile, Noor and Lin were enjoying street food with the prize money they'd won. Fatty had finally given them the money for Noor's first goblin-slaying mission, even though there was no proof they'd killed a single goblin. After they finished eating, Lin told Noor she wanted to go home, relieved that she'd finally get some peace and quiet. Just then, Ray showed up looking for his sister. When he saw Noor, he immediately asked him to head to a mountain town the next morning. He also mentioned that Lin would be coming along, and assured them he'd handle everything and provide a good payment. Ray didn't explain the true purpose behind the trip, but Noor agreed, since Ray seemed sincere. The next morning, Noor boarded a carriage that would take them to their destination. It was Noor's first time riding in one, and the main reason he accepted Ray's request was that he wanted to experience it. On the other hand, Lin seemed gloomy, so Noor asked if she wasn't interested in the view outside. Lin eventually looked out and thought about how, one day when she became a real adventurer, she'd leave the city to explore. Lin suddenly apologized for her brother dragging Noor into this mission, but Noor brushed it off, saying he was getting paid for it. However, Lin's mood only worsened. That morning, Ray had explained that their mission was to travel to Toros, a town on the other side of the mountain. If nothing happened after staying there for a while, they were supposed to continue on to the neighboring Holy Kingdom of Mitra. Ray told Noor that as long as nothing happened, he could treat it as a paid vacation. Now, Lin was really hoping nothing would go wrong. Her bodyguard, Ines, assured her there was no need to worry since she was there to protect her. In fact, Ray had given Ines a secret mission before they left. He warned her that their kingdom was on the brink of facing a great danger, and if the kingdom fell, Ines would have to take Lin to Mitra for safety. Ines was shocked and asked if Lin knew about this, but Ray said he hadn't told her, knowing she'd refuse. Ray was deeply concerned about Lin's safety and told Ines that she was the only one he trusted with this. Back in the present, the group was resting, and Ines apologized to Noor for getting him involved in all of this. She promised to keep him safe, but Noor shrugged it off, saying he was good at running away. Ines insisted there wouldn't be a need for that since she had her shield. Noor said he didn't see anything special, so Ines decided to show him her power. She created a holy shield with her unique ability and told Noor that if anything went wrong, he should take cover behind it. Noor was impressed, and it reminded him of how Lin had mentioned that Ines was on the same level as Gil, the spear user. Noor had heard that Gil was strong enough to defeat a dragon, and if Ines was on the same level, he thought they were way out of his league, considering he had trouble just fighting a single goblin. Noor thanked Ines, saying she was truly talented, but his words made Ines remember her childhood. She'd grown up in an orphanage, and one day, her powers had suddenly activated. A curious friend tried to touch her, but their finger was cut off. The caretakers called in the headmaster, followed by a master wizard, a red-haired warrior, and a priest. They asked Ines to demonstrate her ability, and the wizard said it was a divine gift, something only the rarest individuals received. He told young Ines that her power could either be a sword that could cut through anything or a shield that could block any attack, depending on how she used it. Ines had been confused by his words, but the red-haired warrior told her he'd train her to use her powers properly. She was eventually taken in as his apprentice, and though she mastered her abilities, she kept her distance from the other children, afraid of hurting them. But everything changed when she met Noor and learned his name. She had heard that name countless times from her red-haired mentor, who was also her adoptive father. One day, while hunting monsters in the forest, another warrior had told the red-haired man that a large number of monsters were closing in. The red-haired man had gone quiet for a moment and softly said he wished Noor was there. Ines had been curious about the person her father respected so much, but also jealous. Since meeting Noor, that jealousy had grown, and she desperately wanted to get rid of it so she could focus on protecting Lin without any distractions. Just then, Noor spotted something moving in the wheat field, leaving strange tracks. When Lin heard this, she immediately asked the carriage to stop. She used her magic to reveal what was hiding in the field, and it turned out to be a massive frog-bat hybrid. At the same time, many monsters began attacking the capital, and Ray quickly ordered the warriors, swordsmen, and hunters to hunt down as many as possible, while the thieves were tasked with helping civilians evacuate. King Clay remembered the words of Emperor Derry, who had warned they'd regret not agreeing to his terms. Clay suspected Derry was behind this attack, and Ray agreed. He figured this was just the beginning and they needed to prepare for something much bigger. Clay asked about the Six Masters, and Ray confirmed that they had all been dispatched to deal with the stronger monsters. Elsewhere, the red-haired warrior and his team were fighting 3 goblin emperors in the forest, swordsmen were hunting lizard monsters in the city, and hunters, wizards, healers, and thieves were all occupied. But the king was worried they were too spread out. Meanwhile, as Lin finally broke the concealment spell on the black dragon, The beast lunged at the girl standing in front of it. Lin and Ines immediately recognized it as the Black Death Dragon, an extremely dangerous creature, but Noor acted without thinking and attacked to protect the girl. He blocked the dragon's strike with his black sword, and Ines realized the girl had appeared the moment Lin broke the spell around the dragon. Lin knew this could only mean one thing: the girl must be a demon controlling the monster. Her brother had once told her that there were demons who looked like humans but had powers and personalities more like monsters. He'd also said that demons were a wicked race that had destroyed entire kingdoms, which is why humans hunted them. Their descendants were still around, and Ray believed they held a deep grudge against humans. Back in the current situation, Ines was certain the girl was a demon who had brought the dragon to the city. When Lin used her magic, the girl had likely been startled, and when her control over the dragon weakened for a moment, the dragon attacked her. Ines thought they shouldn't be helping someone like that, but Noor acted on instinct. Seeing Noor still fighting the dragon, Ines wondered what was going through his mind. Lin said they needed to help Noor no matter what, but Ines stopped her, saying it was too late for him. Noor thought the dragon was slow and weak compared to the goblins he'd fought, and he was confident he could buy enough time for Lin to assist him. Suddenly, the dragon spewed its poisonous breath at Noor, and he decided to block it, knowing that if he dodged, the girl would be hit. But that turned out to be the worst decision he could have made, as the attack exploded, spreading a deadly toxin into the air. Noor immediately began coughing up black blood, and tears of blood streamed down his face. He realized he'd been hit with a powerful poison, and it seemed like it was too late as he started losing consciousness. He collapsed to the ground, and Lin tried to rush to him, but Ines quickly erected a barrier, telling her that approaching the Black Death Dragon would only put her in more danger. Ines combined her shields to strengthen the barrier, hoping to keep Lin safe. Lin begged to be released so she could help Noor, but Ines refused, as her priority was the princess's safety. The dragon fired another breath attack, and Ines hurried to reinforce the barrier with more shields. She told the princess to focus entirely on her own safety, but Lin still used her purification magic, hoping to save Noor. However, her magic wasn't strong enough, and as the black poison began to cover everything, Ines apologized to Noor, knowing she couldn't save him. Suddenly, part of the dragon's claw smashed into the barrier, and the poisonous cloud dispersed. Noor was still fighting the dragon, even though he had been severely poisoned. Seeing Noor like this, Ines finally understood why the red-haired warrior had wanted Noor's help in tough situations. She realized Noor was the kind of person who would become the main shield protecting everyone, even if it meant sacrificing himself, but she also knew that there was no way he would survive this. Meanwhile, Noor continued to endure the dragon's attacks. He managed to block its poisonous breath, but that gave the dragon an opening to strike him. He held out, but that was all he could do before collapsing to the ground. As he touched his face and saw the streaks of poisoned blood, all he could do was hope that somehow he would survive. His life felt like a movie playing right in front of his eyes. He remembered his youth, when he came home after failing to get into any adventurer school. He started training and living on his own. One day, like any other morning, he went into the forest to gather food and vegetables, and he stumbled upon a huge haul. He returned with a big grin, getting everything ready, but then suddenly realized there were two plants he didn't recognize. Still, he threw them into the soup, thinking the worst that could happen was an upset stomach, and he'd be fine after. But he was so wrong. As soon as he tasted the soup, his body collapsed onto the floor, and he started vomiting blood, totally confused about what was happening. In the dim moonlight, he managed to mutter a low-level healing spell he had learned from a healer and crawled out of his house. When morning came, somehow he survived the night by continuously using healing magic. Barely able to stand, he stumbled back into his house to search for books on common poisonous plants. He quickly found the plant called dragonfire and realized it was one of the deadliest plants in the forest, something his mom had once warned him about. Despite being in bad shape, he kept up with his training and headed back to the forest with his sword to practice blocking. But he collapsed again from how weak his body was. He healed himself and rested. When he woke up, feeling much better, he decided to head back to the forest for healthy food. He spotted the dragon fire plant again and made sure not to repeat the same mistake. But, unfortunately, a snake suddenly bit him on the butt, poisoning his entire body and knocking him out cold. Strangely, a few minutes later, he woke up feeling perfectly fine and noticed that the snake was dead. He took the dead snake home and decided to cook it, just to taste it. The next morning, he intentionally let the same snake bite him again and realized it didn't hurt as much this time, and he didn't feel sick. It meant he was developing resistance to poison. This made him super happy because he hoped that if he kept training, he might unlock some new skills. From that day on, he started eating anything poisonous he could find, even downing another dragon fire plant. Sometimes he'd pass out, sometimes he'd puke blood, but he always managed to survive. He never unlocked any new skills, but even after vomiting blood, he kept eating those poisonous things because he started to enjoy the taste. Fast forward to the present. He got back on his feet, shocking everyone. But in his head, all he could think about was how delicious this frog would be if he roasted it just right. He ignored the pain, and his body began to neutralize the poison inside him, while the healing spell he cast on the kid saved him from the toxic fumes. The dragon was stunned that this guy was still breathing and tried to claw him to death. But Noor wasn't someone who went down easily, continuing to block its attacks. The monster got to the point where its claws even broke. The kid looked at Noor in awe, wondering how a regular human could fight such a dangerous monster without fear. But Noor didn't even realize the monster was a dragon and instead thought it was just a giant frog from outside the forest. The dragon decided to go for a final attack, taking a deep breath to spew as much poison as possible. But Noor struck its face just before the dragon could attack. The blow turned back on the dragon, causing its body to explode into 1,000 pieces. While the others looked on in awe, Noor quickly turned to the kid standing nervously, thinking Noor might kill him too. But Noor just asked if he was okay. The question shocked the demon kid, and Noor asked what he was doing so close to that frog. The kid was confused about why Noor called the dragon a frog but replied that he brought the dragon into town. The kid thought Noor would be mad, but Noor figured the kid must be a farmer who raised this frog on a small farm and was bringing it to town to sell it to a restaurant to be cooked into a nice dish. Noor immediately felt guilty, so he bowed and apologized for killing the kid's frog, promising to pay for it, but said he'd need time to save up the money. The kid, even more confused, told Noor he didn't need any money and was actually grateful Noor killed the dragon. Noor asked how the kid managed to control such a giant frog without getting hurt, and the kid said he could control monsters. He thought this would make Noor mad, but Noor was instead amazed, wondering how such a small kid could control such a strong beast. The kid explained he was born with this power, which shocked Noor, who thought the kid must have been blessed by the gods. The kid stammered but eventually told Noor he was from a race humans called demons. Noor had no clue that demons were discriminated against and treated like slaves, and he said he wished he could be one of them, because then he could ask animals for help on the farm. He could send messages using birds and wouldn't have to worry about dogs and wolves attacking him at night. The demon kid grew even more confused and asked Noor if he didn't hate demons. Noor looked puzzled and asked why he should hate them, and the kid replied that all humans hated demons because they feared their power. Noor thought for a second and told the kid that those humans were dumb because this power seemed incredibly useful, and if he could choose, he would want that power too. This moved the kid to tears, as it was the first time a human had treated him like a living being, not a second-class creature that needed to be punished. The kid asked Noor if he could also be useful to people, and Noor, confused about how someone with such great power could think so little of themselves, wondered if the kid had a tough childhood. He placed his hand on the kid's head and said he was sure the kid could be super useful to people. Suddenly, Ines and Lin ran toward Noor, asking if he was okay, but Noor replied that he was immune to a little poison, shocking Lin, since dragon poison wasn't just any poison. It was the deadliest in the world, capable of killing plants and trees too. She couldn't understand how anyone could survive that. Lin realized there was only one way someone could survive such poison: if they had trained one skill to the point of becoming a saint. But that was impossible, as even instructors at healing schools needed 40 years of constant training to reach that level of power. Suddenly, She noticed the demon kid and immediately realized he was a demon. She asked Noor what he wanted to do with the kid, and Noor said he wanted the kid to come with them because he had just interrupted the poor kid's frog delivery to the city. Ines quickly realized the demon had brought the dragon to town to cause destruction, and she glared at the kid, asking who ordered him to do it. The kid said he didn't know who the person was, and Ines realized the kid was just a slave being forced into a child soldier role. She asked if the kid knew where he was from, but the kid replied that he was blindfolded on the way, so he didn't know anything about that. Noor looked at Lin and asked her to take the kid to the nearest city, and Lin agreed, but Ines said demons weren't allowed in the Mitra kingdom and might be attacked if they brought the kid. Lin wondered if they could bring the kid along, and suddenly a man appeared behind them, carrying a set of weapons and grinning, asking how they survived the dragon.